On the morning of January 4th, 2023, in the quiet town of Enoch, Utah, the Haight family's modest home sat along a suburban street where Christmas lights still twinkled stubbornly, remnants of the holiday season. Normally, this street would hum with life, children playing, neighbors chatting over fences, the distant bark of dogs. But that morning, an unnatural silence blanketed the neighborhood. Cars were parked outside the house, but no lights flickered from within. No one had stepped outside. Neighbors tried calling, but Michael Haight's phone went unanswered. Tasha had missed an important appointment, raising eyebrows. Concern quickly escalated. By the evening, someone finally called the police. Patrol officers arrived around 9 a.m., walking around the house, knocking on doors, calling out the family's names. No one answered. Windows were tightly shut. Only one side door, slightly ajar, allowed them entry. Inside, the house was dark and still, frozen in a moment of domestic normalcy. A meal sat untouched on the dining table. Holiday decorations remained in place, as if time itself had stopped. Family photographs lined the walls. Michael and Tasha, their 5 children, smiles frozen in perfect moments of happiness. But what the officers encountered told a far darker story. Hey everyone, before we dive deeper into this case, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment down below. I bring you real, authentic true crime stories from across the world, and your support helps the channel grow, keeping these stories coming. Inside the house, the full horror was soon revealed. 7 members of the Haight family were dead, including Tasha's mother, Gail Earl, who had been living with them for support. What had looked like a normal suburban household was, in reality, a carefully maintained facade, masking years of control, fear, and abuse. To outsiders, the Haight's were exemplary. Enoch, a town of roughly 8,000 residents, nestled between Salt Lake City and Las Vegas, was a place where neighbors knew one another and families kept to themselves. But the Haight family seemed to shine even within this close-knit community. Michael Haight, an insurance agent, was described by clients and acquaintances as reliable, confident, and polite. He was a devout member of his church, attending weekly, participating in community projects, coaching youth sports, and volunteering whenever he could. A model father, at least on the surface. Tasha Haight, his wife, ran the household and had a degree in child development. She dedicated herself to her children, organized church events, and volunteered at local schools. Calm, compassionate, and outwardly happy, she was the image of domestic stability. Their children Maisie, 17, Briley, 12, twins Amon and Sienna, 7, and Gavin, 4, were active in school, sports, and extracurriculars. They smiled in pictures, participated in community events, and appeared, by every external measure, to be a normal, thriving family. Yet perfection can be deceptive. Behind the well-kept facade, a system of control and fear had quietly taken root, hidden from neighbors, teachers, and even extended family. The warning signs had begun years earlier. In 2020, Maisie, then 14, reached out to authorities after a troubling incident. Michael's aggression had escalated dangerously during a family argument. Maisie reported that he humiliated her, monitored her phone and online communications, and, in one terrifying instance, had nearly strangled her during an altercation. Police intervened, interviewing both Tasha and Maisie. Michael framed the episode as a family misunderstanding, claiming he had only tried to maintain order and protect himself. Tasha supported this narrative, declining to press charges. Officers used a standard 11-question risk assessment checklist. Of these questions, only 2 returned positive. Michael had access to firearms, and the family had previously lived apart. This assessment did not categorize the household as high risk. Michael was warned to respect boundaries, and the crisis quietly passed. Tasha continued therapy sessions, but minimized police involvement, fearing that escalating legal action would provoke Michael. Though the immediate danger seemed to dissipate, the underlying control persisted. In the years that followed, Michael's methods became more sophisticated, more insidious. Outwardly, he appeared as the dedicated father and community leader, but at home, he monitored conversations, restricted movements, and carefully managed the flow of information. Phones and devices were checked, Children and Tasha lived under subtle intimidation, feeling the weight of constant scrutiny. The home became tense, oppressive, silent, and compliance was expected without question. By late 2022, Tasha had reached a breaking point. She began filing for divorce, formally submitting paperwork on December 21st. Michael received the notice on December 27th. His response, at least on the surface, appeared calm but calculated. He refused to leave the home, instead relocating to the basement while maintaining his presence. Tasha's mother moved in to support her, but Michael's influence over the household remained. Experts on domestic abuse note that the period immediately following a separation is the most dangerous, particularly when a controlling partner perceives loss of power. During this period, Michael's behavior became increasingly obsessive. He was seen pacing the house, monitoring movements, listening, calculating. Investigators later discovered that as early as December 30th, he had been researching firearms, the sound of gunshots in enclosed spaces, and methods of committing a crime discreetly. His focus on control had shifted toward premeditated violence. By the evening of January 3rd, 2023, everything was in place. The family went about an ordinary winter night. Children were put to bed. Tasha and her mother sat in the living room, discussing the divorce and household matters. Michael remained in the basement. During this time, he recorded a 70-minute audio file, capturing ordinary household sounds. Children settling into bed, quiet conversation between Tasha and Gail, and the low hum of domestic life. At one point, Tasha expressed fear, saying, "I don't feel safe around you." Michael dismissed her words, maintaining a tone calm and even affectionate, hiding the obsessive planning that simmered beneath. In the early hours of January 4th, Michael executed his plan. Between 3 and 4 a.m., gunshots rang out. Neighbors, hearing the sudden noise, initially assumed it was fireworks. By morning, no one had emerged. It was not until police arrived later that day, around 4 p.m., that the scale of the horror became apparent. Seven family members, including Tasha's mother, had been killed, most likely while sleeping. Evidence suggested methodical, sequential killings, with careful removal of additional firearms and no signs of struggle. A note discovered later revealed Michael's motive: an inability to tolerate perceived humiliation, placing blame on Tasha, and a desire to regain control through destruction. Ultimately, Michael ended his own life, leaving the family's legacy shattered. In the aftermath, the stark contrast between public perception and reality fueled outrage. Local media initially published obituaries portraying Michael as a devoted father and husband, erasing the violent tragedy he orchestrated. Social media backlash forced corrections, shining a light on the societal biases that often protect outwardly respectable men from scrutiny, even when prior incidents of aggression are documented. Experts analyzing the Haight family case have emphasized the importance of understanding the dynamics of control. Domestic abuse is not always visible. It does not always leave bruises or public records. Coercion, surveillance, and psychological manipulation can silently dominate a household for years, leaving victims trapped despite appearances. In this case, warning signs were present, documented, and yet systemic failures allowed the tragedy to unfold. Therapists and advocates note that controlling individuals often maintain a double life. Publicly, they are model citizens involved in church, sports, and community activities. Privately, they instill fear and obedience, creating an environment where family members walk on eggshells, censor themselves, and accept their reality as unchangeable. Over time, fear becomes normalized, and even attempts to seek help are fraught with danger. The Haight family tragedy also illustrates the critical risk period immediately following separation or divorce attempts. Research shows that abusers who feel their power threatened may escalate to violence, making timely intervention essential. Safety planning, removal of firearms, and constant monitoring are key steps that can sometimes prevent escalation, though they require proactive involvement from authorities, communities, and support networks. In the case of Michael Haight, these measures came too late. The combination of subtle control over years, societal perception, and insufficient legal intervention allowed the situation to spiral toward catastrophic violence. The deaths of Tasha, her children, and Gail Earl represent the devastating consequences of underestimated domestic control. The deaths of 7 children, 2 adults, and a grandmother in a single household were unprecedented for the region. Investigators have since detailed every step Michael took, researching methods of killing, removing firearms to prevent intervention, planning the sequence of attacks, and creating an audio recording that betrayed his chilling meticulousness. Each act demonstrates the premeditated nature of the crime and the terrifying depth of control he exerted over his family's lives. The story of the Haight family is not just a tale of violence, it is a mirror reflecting systemic failures, societal blind spots, and the terrifying consequences of control left unchecked. It is a reminder that perfection is often a mask, that silence can be as loud as screams, and that vigilance, compassion, and action are essential in preventing such tragedies from recurring. Behind the cheerful family photos, behind the smiles captured in moments of public pride, a quiet terror had festered, a terror that ultimately claimed the lives of 8 people and left a community in shock. The story of Michael Haight and his family remains one of the most haunting examples of hidden domestic abuse in recent Utah history, a sobering reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind the most ordinary of facades